Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Rabbit Hole Reviews. Today we're going to take a look at the FEG PA-63. This particular example is in 380 automatic, but they did manufacture and import them in 380 automatic, 7.65 Browning, or 9x18 Makarov. So let's get into some specifics on it. It's going to be like a lot of pocket pistols. It's going to be a delayed blowback. Very simple design. This one is 7+1 and 380. It comes in at 21 ounces. We're going to weigh that in a little bit to see what it comes up on my scale. Has an overall length of 6.9 inches, a barrel length of 3.9 inches, and was produced between 1963 and FEG stopped cranking these out in 1990. So what are the key things that you'd want to know about a handgun like this? Well, for one, these are surplus handguns. They're known to be inexpensive, but inexpensive doesn't necessarily mean cheap, as in terms of build quality. These are relatively well-made guns for what they are. They're not going to be on the par with something like a SIG or a Walther or higher end designs, but then again, the price tag is going to reflect that. These guns were $200 and under. I remember when they first came in, they were under $200, probably like $180. So, this one, I bought this one new in the box. By new in the box, it basically came in a cardboard box with a leather holster and one magazine and a cleaning rod. That's what you got. Actually, correction, it came with two magazines. So somehow I ended up with two. Overall, accuracy on a gun like this is actually pretty good. You're not going to notice, at least in my opinion, any major differences between a higher end pocket pistol and something like a PA-63 in terms of accuracy. Not enough to make a difference. Keep in mind, my philosophy of use on something like this would be, on 21 feet and less, probably half that, honestly. It's a backup gun. Another thing about this, unlike the SIG 230, which I reviewed last week, this has a magazine release. So an actual push button magazine release. So manual of arms is definitely Western. Here you are with the magazine. Single stack, very basic design. Safety is just like a lot of safeties, like on a Walther, it's got a slide mounted safety. Up is fire. You see the red dot. Red means dead. And then you pull down on that to decock and put the weapon on safe. One takeaway I would say with a handgun like this, they are reliable. They are reasonably well made. And given that there's nothing really polymer except for the grips on a gun like this, it is light for what it is, at least in my opinion. As far as changing out the sights, the sights that you're looking at a typical arrangement here. It's, not really much to look at. There's not going to be any outlines for any dots. I'm sure you could paint some luminescent paint on there if you wanted to. The rear is dovetailed, so you can drift it or swap it out. The front is machined into the slide, so there's no going back from that. And it is relatively small, so it's kind of hard to pick up on it. But again, this, in my mind, is more of a point and shoot type weapon. Breakdown is very, very simple. You simply remove the magazine with your now push button release. Take the rear trigger guard, push down and forward till it displays like so, and you simply lift the slide off the frame. So just like most pocket pistols, it's going to have a pin barrel, so that definitely increases the accuracy potential. Again, a lot of it has to do with, are you schooled enough in shooting small pistols like this? The recoil on a 380 isn't particularly, it's not severe, but it's there given the size of the handgun. There's not really a whole lot to hang on to, but it's not the smallest pocket pistol that I've seen or owned. So then there you go, decocks, We'll display that one more time. Decock and fire. So that's the only safety you have. I think the other safety, which is worth mentioning, is not really a safety, but the fact that the trigger pull is horrendously heavy would basically act as a safety in and of itself, in my opinion. That would be one notable thing about this handgun that kind of differentiates it from the dozens and dozens of pocket pistols out there. This has got a very heavy trigger pull. We'll try to test that now. My trigger gauge only goes up to, I think, 20 pounds. So anything above that's not going to register. And hopefully this pistol won't break my trigger gauge, because I don't know. This is the first time I'm going to test this. Hopefully I can pull this off. And we'll see what this example comes up with. All right, 17.4 pounds. Let's do it 2 more times. Hopefully my gauge will survive. 16.4 pounds. And 19 pounds. I'm not too sure about that last one, but you get the idea of what kind of trigger pull you're looking at, and that's double action. Keep in mind that's going to be your first shot out of the gate that you're going to use as you draw and present the pistol and engage your target. Hopefully you'll be in single action after that. You've got 7 rounds, 7 plus 1, 1 in the chamber. This pistol is actually not too bad to carry. It claims the weight at 21 ounces. Let's see what my scale comes up with on this. I don't have any live ammunition presently on the table to add the weight of a loaded magazine. So what we're going to come up with is, or what number I'm going to come up with, is just the pistol with an empty magazine. That'll give you a rough idea. Let's see what we have. Sometimes I feel like my scale doesn't want to really cooperate. All right, so the numbers are correct. 21.05 ounces. So we're going to go ahead and round that down to 21 ounces. So those numbers bear out. So that's what you're looking at without 7 rounds of 380 automatic added to it. So definitely account for that weight. Again, it's if you're going to wear this on your ankle, I mean, you're going to notice it. It's an all-steel gun. It's 21 ounces hanging on an ankle holster. I would probably go with something smaller like a Beretta Tomcat in 32 if I was going to have something that was that deep of a concealment pistol. Overall build quality, again, is excellent for the money, right? So keep in mind we're looking at a gun that if you can get it under, I don't know what the current market prices are. Let's say under $300 delivered. Now that's something that might be worth looking at. Relative to other guns out there that may cost $200 or $300 or $400 more than that. They are reliable. They are reasonably accurate. I think the only thing that might hold them back would be the first double action trigger pull. It is very heavy. It's not a terrible trigger. It's just heavy. So that could either, depending on what you consider safe or what you consider manageable, if you consider a 17 to 19 pound trigger pull double action acceptable, then you're not going to have any issues with that. I bought this pistol knowing that that's what the trigger weight was going to be. Magazines are out there. Surprisingly, with surplus guns like this, you have to dig a little bit to get magazines, and in some cases, they're actually pretty expensive relative for what they are. You're paying more for a single stack 380 pocket pistol magazine than you are for a high capacity factory Glock mag. So that's something that you have to budget for that. Keep in mind, you're not going to be carrying, 7 magazines. You're not going to need that many. I would say probably for a pistol like this, maybe 3 or 4 magazines total would be sufficient. Obviously, the gun's going to come with 1 mag, so your starting point is at 1. Get 2 or 3 more, and you should be in business. The factory holster is actually pretty nice, the leather holster. It does hold a spare magazine, and so it's not something I would wear on a usual outing, right? Because it's not exactly concealed. But it gets the job done if you're not worried about concealed carry, if you're open carrying, or if you're out on your private land somewhere. I don't know, doing whatever, then you're not worried about that. And it definitely, the full flap holster will cover the pistol nicely, and it does a good job. So to keep this video short, we want to keep this one probably under 15 minutes, I would imagine. I would recommend it. Just keep in mind the trigger pull is heavy, as demonstrated. The weapon, 21 ounces empty, that's not terrible. It's an all-steel handgun. FEG no longer produces firearms at all. They've stopped making this 32 years ago, and they got out of the handgun or the firearms business at some point, I want to say in the mid-2000s. Someone correct me in the comments on that. But again, overall, I think the handgun is worth it. Just don't pay too much like everything else. This is surplus, and surplus market is definitely on the rise. Prices, unfortunately, are not what they were. I think the heyday of surplus firearms in general is pretty much past us, as inflation is not in our favor at this point. The U.S. dollar is weaker. Supplies of surplus firearms are inevitably drying up, just like ammunition. So you factor a lot of different things in there, and surplus is going away. So what you're looking at now is picking up things like this on the secondary market like I did. You're going to pay a little bit of a premium. This one happened to be brand new when I bought it, so I guess that would be my one saving grace for the price that I paid. Overall, I'm happy with it. I think you will be too. It is a piece of, I wouldn't say military history. It doesn't have any military provenance, I would say, but it's Cold War surplus. They're reasonably well made. Communist governments really couldn't do much right, but they did manufacture weapons. That part they got down. And FEG is no exception when it comes to their machine guns, their Kalashnikovs, their pistols. FEG's cranked out a lot of good things over the decades, and this, I think, was one of them. So in summary, I would say get it. Just watch the price. And that's all I've got for you guys. Today's review was the Hungarian FEG PA-63. Have a good one.